could one pick up the right perfume matching your personality? And so we want to test you on that. So I'm going to pick up some names, some categories of aroma, and very quickly in a rapid fire mode, you will have to help me with attributes of how it would relate to one's personality so that our listeners can ensure they have the right one for their personality. Okay, so florals.
Beauty, femininity, everlasting, timeless.
Fruity.
Bubbly, kids, enjoyment, jumping, exciting.
Oh, woody.
Definition, deep, depth, signature.
Musky.
Soft, seductive, sensual, anytime wear. Yeah.
Amber.
Masculine, Middle East, unexplored, innovative, cherry on the top.
And spicy.
Adventurous, refreshing, hot. Yeah.
Wow. So that rapid fire was really hot. It's full points for Vipul for taking us through those lovely, lovely ways of matching an aroma, a perfume with your personality. Hello and welcome to Upodd Uae, a Kya Matlab Network initiative. And I'm your host, Ranjana. Welcome to the very first season of our business podcast, A Cup Full of Passion. The sense of smell is closely linked with memories. It transports you way back in time. It's timeless. And it soothes you, energizes your day, gives you that perfect feeling of aha. I'm sure after you listen to our first guest of the season, who's a visionary and aroma expert from the luxury fragrance industry, you are going to be left with some beautiful memories to cherish. Welcoming with us is our guest, Vipul Suri, who's an aroma expert and a cognoscente himself. Hi Vipul, how are you?
Hi, how are you? A very good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
It's our pleasure, and I'm completely very, very delighted to have you and hear your wonderful story, which is filled with passion. So let's start, as you say, one chapter begins, the other ends. We would love to hear how the first chapter of your lovely aromatic journey began.
So, Ranjana, it goes back to maybe 1940s, when my grandfather, he kind of moved from Pakistan to India and settled in a small town called Lucknow in India, in Uttar Pradesh. And then he started a very small scale setup of making attars. And we were privileged to have among the first to have this kind of a setup in India. And he gave his whole heart and soul and developed this small business. And we were also the first to actually export attars from India to various countries like Middle East and Africa and Asia. And then my father and the related family, they all joined the same business, carrying it further. And me is the youngest in the family, and I was still very young and at the school time. And my grandfather one day just called me and he said, Vipul, you should be a chemist. And for me, that word chemist actually stuck in my mind as chemistry, and I thought, okay, my grandfather says to be a chemist. And, I was in class 8 or something. I didn't understand the word in much detail. But what actually he meant was that, perfumers were also called chemist. So he wanted me to be a chemist, as in a perfumer. So gradually, when I completed my school, I went to grad, I did my pharmaceutical sciences. And during that time, when I realized that, I do have that knack of understanding smells. And then I started exploring. So the whole spark, I would say, was initiated by my grandfather. And he somehow visioned that I would one day be part of the same heritage in my family. So right now, I'm the third generation in my family. I'm very privileged to be part of the perfumery family. And this is how I feel quite thankful to the God as well.
Lovely. I'm sure third generation taking the legacy ahead is always a big task. And you have a great responsibility of innovating and taking the pride ahead. So for you, how do you do it? Is it more of art or more of science that you apply in your techniques of perfumery?
So, there are legendary perfumers and people have worked for years in this industry, and it's always a debate that perfumery is an art and science. Of course, perfumery, fragrance creation is all about artistry and finding creative solutions. But we cannot skip the science part because today we need science as a tool. And science, from my perspective and experience, it's just a tool to drive your perfumery creation abilities. Of course, there are people who 100% believe that molecular levels and micro neurological levels we can bring new innovation to perfumery. But then in the end, a perfume has to sit and capture and create memories to enhance one's feelings and maybe personality. So I would say it's more about art and less about science.
Great. I mean, when I talk of science, I think as a user, there's one thing I was told by someone I don't really remember, but who was into the perfumery industry, is that when you buy a perfume, the first thing you do is you spray and see, and if there are droplets on your skin, it's more liquid and that's not the right perfume. So, is this right? Are there such tricks and tips for our users that you'd like to share, that when we are picking up the right perfume from the shelf, it's not just the brand, it's the perfume made with the right technique? So what would that be from your end?
So, of course, there could be some product problems at times, because end of the day, we're engineering a product. But use a perfume, it's people have taken to it very seriously. It's very simple. You have to apply a perfume on places where you sweat less, because if you mix your fragrance with your sweat, then probably it will destroy the overall beautification or the beauty of the fragrance. So you have to apply on your palms and on your shoulders and the neck and above the waist. Avoid using too much of the perfume at one time, because that can also give you headache. Talking about droplets, which people would have discovered while spraying. So, maybe they have brought the bottle too close to your hands. So, or maybe to your skin, where you find the splash of the alcohol or the water on your skin. So, you have to keep it at a distance of like 30 centimeters, 40 centimeters where you spray. And then you shouldn't be too far from your spray, because the whole fragrance will evaporate in the air. It will not stick on you. So, you will feel the fragrance, but eventually it will not be on you. So one has to be very careful about how to how to actually manage the bottle. But then don't think too much. End of the day, it's a beautiful product. It's a fragrance it's not only a product. I would say it's more about your own personality in a bottle, and you are enriching your personality with few sprays. So enrich yourself as much you want to, but be careful, avoid certain situations where the fragrance can be very harsh. So as you said, the science part, in perfumery. So this is where the scientific knowledge of using a perfume also comes in. People have documented that, you should not spray too hard, or especially in kids, you should avoid using fragrances too much closer to their skin. So there are products designed especially for kids, keeping in mind their skin texture is very fragile. And even for hair, so fragrances for hair would be designed specifically for hair care, because the hair is a different structure. So science plays a very important part in the product design, but the beautification part of a product is always enhanced by the fragrance.
Okay, lovely. That's so thoughtful, I would say, for someone who doesn't know what's going behind the bottle of that lovely smelling perfume. Let's talk about your journey, how it began. How did you fall in love with those fragrances which are there around you in the nature? So where did it all start? What was the beginning, the genesis of you falling in love with the aroma?
So after I finished my school, I wanted to do sciences, because it was there in my head that I had to learn science, and I took studies in Ooty. I went to Ooty. It's a hill station back in India, in the Tamil Nadu region. So Ooty is full of green. It's a hill station where it's green, it rains and fresh air, and you feel very healthy there. So I had a lot of time with my own self because it's a hill station, and my college was at top of the hill where even if you had to go to the town, you have to walk down. So rather stay on the top and enjoy the scenery and the sunsets and the sunrises and the dawns and the evenings. And because it was very fresh, you could get the smell of eucalyptus around you all the time. And somehow, I started realizing, sitting in one corners while studying my books and understanding science, that it automatically linked whatever I was studying to perfumery. Because back in my head, I always, when I missed my home, the one thing which always connected me was the perfumery which my whole family is into right now. And somehow I linked everything to fragrances. And there are many forests in Ooty, around Ooty as well. Small gardens, there are flowers, there's cinnamon forest, and then there's botanical garden full of different flowers. There's even a rose garden which has more than 100 species of different roses. So I somehow went there and I smelled all these things, and I said, if it's there in me, it'll automatically come to me. So that's where it all started, that yes, I can bring and enter and take the heritage of my family to the next level, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. And in your family, because it's going on since generations, do you think this is kind of the sixth sense that you all have, the power to recognize aroma? Do you talk an aromatic language at home with your daughters and wife?
No, of course, we do talk most of the time about fragrance. At times they get, they enjoy it rather. And, when I just got married, my wife was quite new to this industry as well. And she was a bit surprised that why do we always talk about rose and patchouli and amber and woods, and talking about increase the top note and the middle note and the base note. So she was a bit lost in the beginning and she was a bit annoyed, but later she understood, that we live with this. And it's not only me. I've met so many perfumers in the industry, and so many people who are there in part of this industry. We talk about fragrances all the time because it's something which just comes inside you, and you want to live with it all the day because it's a continuous creation. And talking about the family, because I'm third generation, I feel privileged and God blessed, and also because I've been accepted very thankfully by the industry, that I can be part of the main circle or the global circle. I feel it automatically links your thought process with such people around. The other thing is that we don't find people who talk about fragrances all the day. Yeah. So by nature, by human nature, we stick to people who understand it, like my family. Or if I want somebody as a friend to me, I'll probably teach him, this is what fragrances is, and then he talk to me about fragrances, because it's more introspective, and you need people around you who can talk about fragrances and live with you and talk to you that this is how it is. So one day what happened, my little one, she was born in South Africa. She was only 1.5 years probably, and we were walking down a mall, and she picked up a candle, and she started smelling by her own self. Mm-hmm. And when I asked her, what are you doing? She said, she brought the bottle to her nose and she said, it's wow. And I was so surprised that, that it's actually true. It just travels, because from generation to generation, it's inherited. And my family actually is interested. They love me talking about fragrances, and they keep on asking me questions. What is this, and what kind of profile it is, and what kind of fragrance it is. So yes, we do talk about fragrances almost all the day.
Lovely. And I think from what I understand, in a beautiful way, because the way we would talk about fragrances at home is, you smell like a rotten egg. So I'm sure there are beautiful adjectives that you can add to the aromas around you, and that's just such a wonderful way of expressing, I think. Adding your psychology to aroma or the sense of smell makes the conversation even more delightful. And we are having one today with Vipul Suri, so that's our privilege.
Thank you.
Vipul, you've been in so many places. You started your journey with Ooty. Lately, you were in South Africa and now in Middle East. And I'm sure you've traveled the world. You've collected a lot of memories around. What's been the most interesting part of your journey that you would like to reflect on, or that kind of captures a beautiful memory, a beautiful aroma?
So it's a very good question, Ranjana. Yes, it is a beautiful journey and not an easy one though, because some people come across to me and tell me, you have a God gift of smell. I said, no, you have to work towards it because you need to develop your own passion in perfumery. That's the first step. And then probably you have to spend learning years and years and years. And then probably you will understand how to create a fragrance, or maybe justify a fragrance, or use a fragrance, or develop a product with the fragrance. So it's a long journey. But me being the naughtiest one in my family, I always wanted to step out of the house. So I took a decision to step out and move in the corporate world and understand and explore what the world has apart from what I've learned from my family itself. And that's the reason I started traveling. From Lucknow, I went to Bombay, and then I went to South Africa, and then I went to Shanghai, and then again to Lucknow, and then now I'm in Middle East. So Middle East has been my ultimate space, a stopping point where I want to reach, because it's a place full of fragrances. Everybody loves fragrances here. They know how to use it, and they talk about fragrances. It's very uncommon where I've traveled. So the beautiful part about this journey is understanding cultures and understanding human being more closely, because when you are living in small cluster or a small place, you are surrounded by people, and eventually you adapt to their lifestyle and you love them and you be friendly with them. But when you move out of your uncomfortable zone, you probably see the world from a different vision, which I wanted to explore. So the whole journey till today has been about understanding human beings more closely, because end of the day, we create fragrances for people. And people in different places, they have different approach to life. In fact, every human being has a different approach to life. But then when I went to Africa, I wasn't sure. I thought it's the same, it's going to be like easy and everything. In the beginning, it was very difficult. But then the whole beautiful journey was very beautiful, because I came across so many different cultures and colors and food and the lifestyle, and then same in China, and also now in Middle East, because Middle East is a global place. There are people from various parts of the world. I mean, you wouldn't have even heard the name of these places as well. And when you interact with them, talk to them, you come to know that what is their perception about fragrance. It's not only about likability. There are many perceptions. So this is what the beautiful part is about this whole journey of moving different places. And again, I'll be very lucky and privileged that all these places, they accepted me. And they helped me to groom myself. And people usually don't travel much in my industry because it's more introspective, it's more inner self, working on your conscious level and your brain level, and understanding and creating from data and talking to people. So I wanted to explore, and this was the reason. So
lovely. That's a wide palette of experience, just like you explained the perfumery industry. So what has been the challenge in the transformation from one country to another, from one culture to another, and adapting yourself or your business into the Middle East?
So yes, a lot of challenges. I put them in two baskets. One is domestic challenge, where it's about moving a country or a city, because moving a city is as equally challenging as moving a country. So in the basket of domestic challenges, I would put, transportation, there are monetary gains and losses, and then moving family, finding schools, finding a house, adapting to the place, the environment, the culture. So those are all domestic challenges. Then the other is, I would say, is more related to fragrances, because you are driven, or you are working in a particular culture, and whatever you have created for that country where you're living right now becomes your habit. And then when you move from that to another place, the uncomfortable zone, I would say, or I would say the rising zone, where you evolve yourself. So you have to mentally even evolve your style of fragrances and how you create fragrances, because the consumer need is very different because of economy reasons, their culture reasons, their society reasons, their habits.
So what about the second basket that you were talking about?
So the second basket, I would put all the creativity and the challenges while creating a fragrance, because when you are settled in one place, of course you're moving domestically, but then you have to also be reinventing or relearn or rewind or maybe clear your mind, because you are going to come across with new people, new culture, new objects, new environment. So this is exciting. It's an exciting challenge. So I call it a rising point, where you are here and then you move from one place to another and you rise. And in that space, your creative juices have to be refreshed. So challenge of rewinding or relearning, because you're unlearning something, it's a challenge for creative field, because you have a particular style of working, you know how to design fragrances in a particular way, and over there you start again. So you go back to zero and then you start relearning everything again and again. So it is a change in time, and you take a bit of time, sit back, give more thoughts. But it's nice because you're learning the new and you're growing yourself, and in the end the result is amazing. I mean, that's what motivates me, and that brings more excitement to my life, and it drives my passion, because in fragrance industry or in perfumery, your number one driver is your passion. I mean, I'm sure like any industry, passion is rated the highest, but then for us, why passion? Because our industry is more introspective, and you have to go think by your own self. There's no one who can help you with your thought process and your dreams and your creation and how you create and how you approach objects. So, and your passion would drive those thoughts, those juices. So we rate it the highest. And then secondary comes the knowledge of science, and then how you approach people. Of course, your personality to adapt to things, and how would you finally interact with people and gel with them, because your personality also changes. So the result is you personality change physically, and then your inner self also grooms along with it.
Passion and perfumery, they go together for you, right? From what I understand.
Yes.
So tell us about 5 such fragrances that you feel fills passion around you, within you, and you would recommend it to any of your friend, something that everyone should have on their shelf.
I would, no, I cannot say brand names,
Yeah.
but then, what I would suggest to everybody that, you must have particular olfactive families. We call smells as olfactive families as well. It's a technical term. So for female, a female should have a floral sheaf, which is in an easy term, a floral powdery fragrance, must have in your shelf. Then a more fruitier sheep fragrance, which is about fruity. You have cherry, you have strawberry with some powdery notes and sweet notes. And then a must-have is gourmand, which is always a reinventing trend, like a vanilla, or you have a coffee, or you have a chocolate. That's, you use it once in a while, but you must have it, because why I say we put in, I'm saying these families, is because fragrance not only enhances your personality, it also enhances your mood. And most of the time, from what I've learned so far, you apply fragrance based on your mood today. If it's like a rough day and a sunny day, probably you'll have a hard fragrance putting on yourself. And if you're going for a dinner with your family, or maybe on your anniversary with your husband, or you have a date, probably you want to look more youthful and bubbly and enjoyable, because it's a very enhancing mood. And during your wedding time, you want to go more seductive and more nicer and more luxury. So you must have such fragrances. So these olfactive families, in a way, it's a proven fact that they drive your moods as well. So you should have a fruity sheep and a gourmand, and also a classic woody. So why I say classic woody? Because in Middle East, this is what I explore. People love oud, and one must have a oud with them, because it is not only a culture; it's also luxurious. The market is filled with different kind of oud and woody fragrance, and if you don't have it, probably you would not be part of representing the Middle East warm and the heritage culture. So a heritage profile must be there, which is belonging to the region where you're living in. So, for example, in India, rose and jasmine is very popular. So one must have a rose and jasmine with them every time, because it's from your own culture. Like in Africa, we had a lot of sweetness around us because of the shea butter and the cocoa butter coming from that region and supplying to the whole world. There's cocoa as well. So a gourmand vanilla fragrance is must, because it's part of the culture as well. For men, men usually like the classic citrus fragrance, but then they must look at the new trends coming in, like a spicy fougere. So fougere is like a woody, a lavender, citrus fragrance, an accord, I would say. I don't want to go much technical, because fougere and sheep, all these are all technical terms which you use in fragrances. But then, in short, it's again, fougere is more woody, aromatic, and sheep is more powdery. There's a term which we were using in perfumery industry. It's called Oriental, which is now stopped being used, because it's kind of anti-culture for some cultures in the world. So Oriental fragrances are more about heavy, dark, like oud, but with a lot of sweetness. So for men, of course, oud is must, because that is something which always drives their masculinity. But then you should have a nice citrus and a spicy fragrance, because for men it's more adventure driven. It's more about driving their personality, making them more presentable and well groomed. So what I do personally myself at times, usually I don't wear fragrances because I'm surrounded by fragrances the whole day. I would apply. And this is what I learned in Middle East. You first apply the attar on yourself, and then you apply a nice, spicy, woody citrus fragrance. And the after effect is amazing, And this is discovered only in Middle East. I have not seen people using attars in other parts of the world. I mean, in Africa, it was a different way they use fragrances. They use a lot of antiperspirant, and then they also use deodorants and also fine fragrances. And their fragrances were much more richer and more complex and subtle. Whereas in China, where people were about more subtle fragrances. India is more about having strong fragrances, because the climatic conditions is very warm, and then people are very multicultural. So when you mix many cultures, it becomes very bright, I would say, and people like bright fragrances over there, more to do with day going fragrances, so yes. You need to have such olfactive families in your wardrobe, in your closet. And talking about brands, must have J'adore for female, because these fragrances are globally recognized, because they have been accepted by consumers all across the world. So you can never go wrong with J'adore. And for men, I would say Bleu de Chanel, because again, globally recognized, accepted by all the consumers across. So if anybody really wants to buy their first fragrance, I can suggest them to buy these.
Lovely. That's a wonderful bucket list for this weekend, to go and shop and pick up some of these aromas to have for yourself and to enhance your personality. Well, talking about aroma a little more takes me back to childhood, and as we say, they kind of captivate your memories. And I think the first smell or fragrance that we remember is maybe from the milk powder. Remember, we used to drink Nido in Dubai as kids, and it had a very peculiar aroma, and we still remember it. Or the first shampoo that we used back in India, Sunsilk, had a very peculiar aroma. So are there any such memories that you reflect on from your childhood and say, okay, I know aroma has a lot more to do with science, but coming to the art of falling in love with the first fragrance, which one was that and when?
So we call them as imprinting smells.
Okay.
These fragrances, they have an imprint, not even our personality, but also in our culture and also in our country. So as you said, like Clinic Plus fragrance. You can never forget this fragrance, or the classic Life Boy, or like you say, Sunsilk, or the Baby Milk, and there are many, many, many such products in the market which are now imprinting because these products have been consistent with their fragrance and with their quality, and they have been providing to consumers no matter what times have come across. They are always available for consumers, and people have become loyalists towards these products till today. So there are certain memories which I've also written in my book. One of the memories which always keep inspiring me till today is like when I was in Shanghai and I was doing a run early in the morning around 5:30, and I didn't realize that you have osmanthus trees across the street. And while I was running, and I got some fruity green smell, and I was like, where is this smell coming from? And I thought maybe somebody would have applied a fragrance too strong, or maybe some bottle would have broken, or somebody's putting in incense somewhere. But that smell kept on going and going and going and flowing across me, and then I stopped by a tree and I smelled it, and it was osmanthus, and I stopped there and I kept on smelling it, I think maybe for 15-20 minutes. I smelled the leaves, I felt the flower, and I sat under the tree to get the whole essence of the tree. And it was very indulging because for my whole life I never discovered an osmanthus tree before. So, and I knew that tomorrow when I leave this place I would not be able to see an osmanthus tree live in such form ever. So I kind of can never forget this smell. This is quite recent. Okay. But back in my childhood, I remember my grandfather's lab. The lab would smell very mix of so many fragrances. But, because it was all about attars, the lab smelled very beautiful. Moment you walk in, even if you don't apply a fragrance, when you come out of the lab, your whole clothes are filled with the fragrance. And that smell, I'm still trying to recreate it, but I'm still not able to achieve it because the quality of attars and the mix which he created, that is amazing. That was amazing. You had the smell of wood and earth and the flowers and the fruities, and I don't know, there were some very, very rich ingredients which you don't get today because they're very expensive, and also most of them are now endangered and they are restricted in our fragrance industry. So, but then yes, that memory is still there, imprinting in my memory still today. Yes.
Nice. And talking about your grandfather's lab reminds me, what do you think you have brought with you to this land? As we say, India's mitti ki khushboo, the land which has the peculiar aroma or kind of a memory or something very captivating in it. Do you think you're able to bottle it and package it for the Middle East? Is there something that you've already thought of in the near term to accomplish?
No, for sure I have, because there's a very good link between the two cultures and the two countries, that is attars. And because I have traveled so many places, I think these are the only two countries where attars are still alive and people respect them. Mm-hmm. And today, especially in Middle East, even the youth, and now in India as well, I'm seeing across that the youth respects this art and they want to use attars. Mm-hmm. So, and the good thing is that, the link of the profiles of attars or the olfactive profiles of attars in India, they're also liked in Middle East. And likewise for Middle East, they are liked in India. So what I really want to bring is a new or next modern outlook to the attars and evolve it. Of course, there are certain type of attars which are still not explored much across the world and also in Middle East. And I really want to bring them on table for the people here, because this country is lovely. I mean, people mix attars and they define their own attars, and they know how to smell attars, and they know if you are wearing an attar, they can say, oh, you're wearing a nice oud, or and I've seen this every day across me. When people cross by me, they talk about attar. They don't use perfume, they talk about attar. They say oil over here. In India, they call it attar. So yes, there is lots I'm looking forward to, and lots I want to bring on table for Middle East, and I'm all horses about it. Yes.
Lovely. So what do we expect? Is fragrance the new future?
That's a very challenging question. Is fragrance new future? I would put it across the future for fragrance, because fragrance is very intangible. It's more of a realization, and you cannot touch it. You have to smell and live with it and feel it. So end of the day, the future for fragrances is the tools which we have to use now. Artificial intelligence is now coming up, and I really want to use this tool, and I am working on it, to how to use this tool to explore or innovate new fragrances in a different style maybe. And the another future is about having fragrances for particular industries, like the retail industries, the retail shops. Maybe they come up with their own set of fragrances, or a particular set or a profile would represent this particular industry. Like in hotel industry, we have certain luxury hotels where they have the same smell across their chain of hotels, no matter where they are placed in which part of the world. So likewise for retail, or maybe for leather shops, or maybe for food stalls, or maybe for some other industry like an automobile industry. So this is where I feel the industry is moving forward in terms of. And in scientific way, of course, we talk about quantum biology and quantum physics and neuroscience. That's where I think the scientific exploration or learning would enhance fragrance sustainability for the industry, and people would look at fragrances from that scientific perspective access, going more in deep about understanding consumers' mindset and the neurological level, where you can do so much with nature and so much with your perfumery.
Interesting, and very, very in-depth for someone who is just understood the bottle and the fragrance and not the science and the art behind it. I'm sure it's a great insight for our listeners as well. And thanks to your book, Itra, it was a wonderful read. A lot of new things that I picked up, especially how could one pick up the right perfume matching your personality. And so we want to test you on that. So I'm going to pick up some names, some categories of aroma, and very quickly, in a rapid fire mode, you will have to help me with attributes of how it would relate to one's personality, so that our listeners can ensure they have the right one for their personality. So are we ready? It's
Yes.
a rapid fire, so no time for thinking much. Yes?
Right.
Okay, so florals.
Beauty, femininity, everlasting, timeless.
Fruity.
Bubbly, kids, enjoyment, jumping, exciting.
Oh. Woody.
Definition, deep, depth, signature.
Musky.
Soft, seductive, sensual, anytime wear. Yeah.
Amber.
Masculine, Middle East, unexplored, innovative, cherry on the top.
And spicy.
Adventurous, refreshing, hot. Yeah.
Wow. So that rapid fire was really hot. It's full points for Vipul for taking us through those lovely, lovely ways of matching an aroma, a perfume with your personality. Vipul, do we have any passion statement from you to all our listeners and to to the passionpreneurs like you who want to venture into this industry, into the luxury fragrance industry and make a mark?
So, one, I would suggest everybody who's in this industry, please read my book, Itra, A Fragrant Odyssey, which covers most of my life and my journey and how do we look fragrances from a perfumer perspective. The other thing is, I always say a good fragrance will always find its home. So even if you create or you buy a fragrance, it always goes to your home. So the other last is, if you have passion, you don't need anything else to survive or to live. Everything falls in place. Just work on your passion. Maybe it's your hobby or your ambition or your lifestyle. If you just drive it to a next level, I think everything falls in place, no matter whatever challenges you have in life.
So, Vipul, tell us what inspired you to write your book, Itra, which definitely is a wonderful read, and I would recommend it to all my listeners. But what was that one moment where you thought, okay, it's time that I need to pen down my memories and my techniques onto pages?
Of course, there are many reasons behind it. First, I'm coming from a culture where people are very shy and they know fragrances very, in a very technical way. But because of their shyness, they don't talk much about fragrances. So I wanted to be one of the first to actually write down, put the story across that this is what we are in this industry. Second is because I was privileged being the third generation in my family and also happily accepted by the whole world of fragrances, and every company today in this world have happily accepted me in this industry. So I really wanted to give a tribute to this industry. Third, of course, there's youth which is coming. They're interested in fragrances. I want to tell them that, how to go about this industry and how do you learn about perfumery. And of course, there are some insights where I've put, which I've learned my way, and how can you define your own journey, and what is the future for the fragrance industry. So it's a nutshell, because you can keep on writing every day, and the whole life you can write about perfumery. I mean, there are legendary perfumers who have written so many exciting books, but I wanted to be one of the first Indian authors coming from the Indian culture perfume industry to write about my culture and global culture, and also what's the future in perfumery.
Excellent. And that makes my cup full of passion today with this morning talk with our special guest, Vipul Suri. That was lovely to have you, Vipul. And thank you so much for sharing your journey, your story, your challenges with us. We wish you all the luck, all the best for capturing all the uncharted territories that you wish to, and make perfumery your purpose and passion for life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjana. Thank you so much.
About Vipul, perfumery is not just a career for him. It's his whole life. He's a passionate perfumer, excellent in attar making, based in Dubai, and he's just authored a book known as Itra. So we're very happy to have him on a podcast, Upodd Uae, an initiative by Kya Matlab Network.